All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's me, and this is week 2 of our 4-week course on financial education. We're going to be learning about money, we're going to be learning how to manage your money, and most importantly, we're going to be learning how to make your money work for you. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check out week 1 to get caught up, but otherwise, let's jump right into it. So, the topic for this week is the money habits that made me rich, and I thought it would be cool to actually do a little Q&A session. So, all of these questions are from people who watched my first video. Lot of great questions. So, we're gonna do kind of a rapid-fire Q&A. Let's start with question number 1. How did you learn about investing? Where to start? Good question. When I was in college, like many college students, I had student loans, credit card debt, car payments, and so that really taught me the importance of having some extra money. So when I started making more money, I saved up and I began investing. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. At first, it was a little intimidating. There's so much to learn. But I just kept learning every single day, and now it's paying off. So where to start? I recommend starting small, starting simple, maybe with index funds or ETFs. And over time, as you become more comfortable, you can add more to your portfolio. Question number 2. At what point did you feel like you were rich? This is a great question because, rich is a relative term, right? Like what is rich to one person may not be rich to another person. For me, I knew I was rich when my investments were paying me more than my day job. At that point I realized that I had something special going on and I knew that I could keep growing this thing. So when did I feel like I was rich? Probably around the age of 30. Question number 3. Do you think everyone should invest in real estate? So, I love real estate. I think it's a great investment, but it's not for everyone, right? It requires a lot of work. You have to find the right property, you have to fix it up, you have to manage tenants, and, sometimes tenants can be difficult. So I don't think that everyone needs to invest in real estate. But if you're looking for passive income, if you want to build long-term wealth, then I definitely think that real estate is a great option. Question number 4. Did you ever have a plan B before you got to your financial goals? So, this is an interesting question because I was talking to somebody earlier today and they said, they didn't have a plan B because their plan A was too important to them, right? They wanted to pursue their dream and they weren't willing to give that up to fall back on a plan B. For me, I kind of took a similar approach. When I started investing, when I started working on my business, I didn't have a plan B because I was committed to making things work. Now you might say, well, that's easy for you to say, right? You've been successful, so it's easy for you to look back and say that. Well, I didn't know that I was going to be successful. At the time, I was just putting in the work. I was just trying to improve every single day, and eventually things started to turn around. So I guess to answer the question, no, I didn't have a plan B. My plan A was too important to me. Question number 5. What's your favorite way to make money? So, this is a good question because it kind of goes back to why you're even watching this video, right? Why do you want to make money? Why do you want to become financially free? Well, I'll tell you right now, it's because you don't want to work for money, right? You want to make your money work for you. So your time is valuable. Spend your time doing things that matter to you, whether that's spending time with family, whether that's pursuing a hobby or whatever it is that matters to you. Don't spend your time working for money. Make your money work for you. So my favorite way to make money is through dividend income. That's my favorite way because it's passive income. I get paid every single quarter, every 3 months, and it's just a nice little surprise. It shows up in my account and I didn't have to work for it. My money worked for me. So dividend income is my favorite way to make money. Question number 6. What does the rest of my week look like? So now that I'm retired, I have a lot more free time on my hands. So during the week, I like to play golf. I like to hit the driving range. I've been practicing my swing. It's kinda rusty, so I've been working on that. And then, I like to travel with my wife. We try to take at least one trip a year together. Just somewhere we've always wanted to go, just the two of us. So that's kind of what my week looks like. I try to stay active. I try to stay busy. And, of course, I'm still investing. I'm still learning about the market. Even though I'm retired, I still like to stay involved in the market. Question number 7. How often do you review your finances? This is a great question because, if you're not reviewing your finances, then you're not in control of your finances, right? So I review my finances at least once a month. I go over my statements, I look at my investments, I see how things are performing, and, I make any adjustments that I need to make. So I review my finances at least once a month. Question number 8. How much risk am I taking with my portfolio? So, this is a good question, because when I started investing, I was very aggressive, right? I was taking a lot of risks. I was buying penny stocks. I was buying options. But over time, as I became more experienced, as I became more knowledgeable, I realized that sometimes the safest investments are the best investments, right? The old saying is that the best investment is the one that you don't make, right? So I'm taking very little risk with my portfolio nowadays. I'm mostly invested in index funds, ETFs, blue-chip stocks, solid companies that I believe in, companies that I use their products and services. So yeah, I'm taking very little risk nowadays. Question number 9. Which came first, the money or the knowledge? So this is a great question because I think it's a little bit of both, right? When I started investing, I was very fortunate because I had a good job, right? I had a good income, so that allowed me to save up and start investing. But over time, I realized that it wasn't just about the money, it was also about the knowledge, right? Because if I didn't educate myself, if I didn't learn about investing, then I wouldn't be able to grow my money, right? So I think it's a little bit of both. You need the money to get started, but then you also need the knowledge to grow that money. Question number 10. What advice would you give to your younger self? This is a great question because if I could go back in time and talk to my younger self, I would tell him a few things, right? First of all, I would tell him to start saving earlier, right? Start investing earlier. And I would also tell him to read more books. Read more books about investing, about personal finance, about business, because knowledge is power, right? Knowledge will give you the ability to make better decisions. So I would tell him to start investing earlier and to read more books. So those were 10 great questions from our first video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick little Q&A session. Next week, we're going to be talking about my top 5 favorite books on investing. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and subscribe. I'm excited to share my favorite books with you guys and help you guys on your investing journey. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.